Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From our discussion in the earlier class, one thing becomes very clear, that the sattvic state of mind and way of being is natural to oneself, even though it appears to be unnatural. On the surface, it appears that anger is natural, fear is natural, desire, unbridled desire, desire that cannot be conquered, is natural. Addiction is natural. Sorrow, depression, jealousy seems to be natural. In fact, that seems to be the ingredient of all our societal impressions that we consume. This is the mainstay of all our stories, in the movies and in the books. Hatred appears natural, and if somebody gets angry, we can say, oh, naturally they got angry because this is what happened, and then we will justify it by looking at the incident that supposedly, purportedly caused the anger. But actually, seen from one's own experience, one rejects the angry I. The angry self is rejected. One is not comfortable being angry. One is not comfortable hating. One is not comfortable being anything other than sattvic. This is also one's experience. So that which seems natural, the anger, the fear, the greed, all these things, kama, krodha, lobha, etc., it is not natural. We should not call it swabhavika anymore, natural. We should give it a new name. The ghora and mudha vrittis, we should consider them habitual, not natural. Then we know one is in the spell of a bad habit, habitual. That which is habitual is resorted to by some kind of an association and some kind of a default reaction. So those vrittis, how did they become habitual? Ajnanatvat, because of the presence of Atma Ajnanam. These are all toxic fumes of Atma Ajnanam, the collateral damage of Atma Ajnanam. Because of this, one is behaving in certain ways from the force of habit rather than because it is natural. It's not natural. Why? Because these tendencies are universally rejected. Everyone is trying to better themselves. Even the person who is an offender has some kind of an ethics. Some kind of dharma is there, even though it is distorted. Okay, I will not steal from children, I will not harm children. Maybe there is something like that. Some ethic is there. And even the most hardened of offenders, sometime they will encounter somebody, and the habitual instinct is to rob, is to maim this person, but something takes over and chalo chhod diya, I have let you go today. Knowing full well that that might be their debacle, that the person may go straight and call 911 and set the police on them. Still that this is what is natural. Still they will let that person go. The rest of it is the ghora vritti, rajasic responses and tamasic responses are not natural, they are habitual. And the habit comes from the insecurity centered on the self, which is a product of Atma Ajnanam. So, going back to Sattva is the natural response, is the natural way of being. That's why even though in the beginning Lord Krishna says it is like Visha, but Pariname Amritopamam, at the end we can compare this state of mind and the sattvic temperament and lifestyle to nectar. This is what Lord Krishna says. So to cultivate this is not something artificial. It is breaking decades, lifetimes of habitual orientation to get back to a place of comfort within oneself. This is the Sattvika Vritti. Very close to Tattvamasi, very close to the understanding that one is Ishvara. In the ashram, in the Gurukulams, where Swamiji used to teach, if two people, brahmacharis or anybody, used to have an argument, so much so that it turned into a big fight, and they would stop talking to each other, they would speak badly about each other to others, and each one would take their complaint to Pujya Swamiji. Pujya Swamiji had a very simple sadhana for both of them. Not for both of them, for the one that is, what is that? For the one that was available for reasoning. He would call the one that was a little more available for logic and reasoning, and the other one was not even available to talk or teach. And he would call that person and say, I want you to do a sadhana. What is it, Swamiji? Anything. Go give this person with whom you have had a falling out a rose. What? You must be kidding, Swamiji. No, I'm not kidding. Give this person a rose. When? Rose. Every day. Every day, give this person a rose. For how long? 48 days. This is a mandala. There is some kind of an esoteric significance of 48 days. And if you do something for 48 days, you know what happens? It becomes a new habit. This is what the Shastra says. And so the person would take the rose the first day and turn away like this and not even talk, and give it like this. So this would continue for 1 or 2 days. Just here, take it. And I'm doing this because Swamiji told me to. This is in the mind. And would give the rose. On the third day, the person giving the rose and the person receiving the rose would, high time you apologized. High time you came round. We used to be such good friends, and Guru Bhais or Guru Behens. We were just like family, and look at what you did. Okay, you are coming around, but I'm not ready to forgive you. Snatched the rose and ran away the first day. Second day also, same thing happened. Third day, the person who was the giver of the rose wanted to see the expression on that person's face. Let's see how shameless you are. You're receiving this rose even though you were the one that yelled at me. Let me see. And so as soon as eye contact was made, they both laughed. They both fell over laughing. And it was all gone. They even on the fourth day they forgot they did not even remember what exactly led to this vairi, this kind of an enmity between them. They just forgot. And then they both went to Swamiji, and Swamiji said, okay, you don't have to give it for 48 days. The job is done. The job was done. This demonstrates that one wants to be loving, one wants to be compassionate, one wants to be accommodating, one wants to let go. Why? Because that is oneself. And that is the recipe for being at home with oneself, which is another name for Ananda. Any other kind of vritti in the mind is an interloper, an impostor, coming to dispel or disturb the peace. With these words, let us look at verse number 8. Verse number 7, just to remind ourselves, this had to do with the one Brahman, one and only Brahman, as though becoming many. And how the example was given, although the moon is one, and if you keep some dishes of water in the courtyard, in the yard, what will you see? Ekadha eva bahudha drishyate. Even though it is one, you see many moons, it is seen as many. And same thing with Brahman. This was a quote from the Amrita Bindu Upanishad. Going further, he waxes eloquent on this metaphor of the moon and the water. Jale pravishtaschandroyam aspashtah kalushe jale. Jale pravishtaschandroyam aspashtah kalushe jale. Vispashto nirmale tadvat dvedha brahmapi vrittishu. Vispashto nirmale tadvat dvedha brahmapi vrittishu. Jale pravishtaha chandraha ayam. Ayam chandraha, this moon, what? Jale pravishtaha, the one that has entered the water. When did the moon enter the water? No, by means of reflection alone. So this moon that has as though entered the water by means of its own reflection, what happens to it? Aspashtaha. Aspashtaha means unclear, faint. Where? Kalushe jale, in turbid waters, in muddy waters. The moon also looks faint, muddy, dirty. Is the moon faint, muddy or dirty? No, it is not. And so what is being described here is the quote-unquote medium of reflection, and this is the elucidation of what is called Pratibimbavada that we saw earlier. So Jale Pravishtaha Chandraha Ayam. Ayam Chandraha, this moon that has entered the waters by way of its own reflection, Aspashtaha Syat, it becomes extremely unclear and faint. Where? Kalushe jale, in turbid waters. In muddy water it becomes faint. What? Not the moon, its reflection. Then Vispashtaha nirmale tadvat. Tadvat, in the same manner, likewise, what happens? Vispashtaha, extremely clear. Where? Nirmale, in the clear. What? This jale, which is on the last word of the first line, has to be brought down again. Nirmale jale tadvat vispashtaha. In the clear waters, the moon shines clearly. Moon shines clearly. And then tadvat, in the same manner, this tadvat can be repeated twice. Tadvat dvedha, twofold, is what? Brahman. Brahman is also, quote unquote, twofold. How? Brahman doesn't become two. In the reflection of the various vrittis. So there is two kinds of Brahman. Brahman takes on, as it were, two forms. Brahman doesn't take on two forms because of the reflection in the minds that have turbid waters, so to speak, in the mind represented by turbid waters. What is that? Ghora and Mudha vritti, Rajasic and Tamasic vrittis are the turbid waters, are likened to the turbid waters. So in that mind, Brahman shines all right, but shines just like the moon, turbid, faint, unclear. But in a mind which has sattvic vritti, in a mind that is inundated with sattva, Brahman shines like the moon in clear waters clearly. So what does this mean? Brahman has become two. Wrong. No. This is this is the quintessential, what is that? Pratibimbavada at its best. The emphasis here is on the medium of reflection. Like if you stand in front of a foggy mirror, what will happen? Your reflection will be foggy. And because of the foggy reflection, you come to a conclusion. What is the conclusion? I am foggy or fogini. Like yogini, fogini. So, this is the conclusion. I am foggy. How come you are foggy? Well, because I look foggy. Then you take a rag and then clean the mirror. Then, I had even forgotten what I look like. I had even forgotten what happened. And we have an example right here. In the beginning of this, I was using a different and much older computer. And Sahadev pointed out that everything is so unclear. Your reflection on Zoom is unclear. Do something. And then now everything is much more clear. It is the medium here of the reflection. The face is the same. The face is not foggy. When you stand in front of the mirror, the face is not foggy. What is foggy is the medium of reflection. And what is the medium of reflection here? The mind saturated by, or that which is inundated by, the ghora, which is rajasic and tamasic vrittis. The mind which is blessed, on the other hand, by the sattvic vritti, is able to see things clearly and objectively. Because what is the turbid water? Turbid water means a mind that is vitiated by subjectivity. That is the turbidity that eclipses the manifestation of Brahman. Manifestation of Brahman means manifestation of Ishvara within oneself. This is where all the compassion, kindness, accommodation, etc. comes. So turbid waters means one's own subjectivity is mixed into the medium which reflects. The medium here is the mind. One's own subjectivity is stirred into the mind so that one is not able to see things clearly. Not only that, one sees it from a distorted standpoint. sees everything distorted. Because there is too much of oneself and little of Ishvara. Ishvara is Tattva. Ghora Modha, oneself. Because the Ghora Modha vrittis operate with the material, as we saw, from the unconscious mind. That is their raw material. So they keep rehashing old grudges, old resentments, hurts, pains, sorrows, fears, despondency, despair. The Ghora and Mudha vrittis are very good at recycling. Oh, really? They're ecological? No, no, no. They just rehash, recycle old stuff. Like a restaurant, Indian restaurant with buffet. Everybody thinks, oh, buffet, all I can eat. And you head over there. Day before yesterday's dal. And yesterday's something else. All just repurposed. New seasoning is put. Some mirchi and some curry leaves and all is put, some asafoetida, just to make it smell good. It's just given a new airing, and then it's the same. Everything looks brown in the Indian buffet. That should be the key to show that it has been around. Same thing. Some people were expected yesterday for dinner and they never came, and so that gravy is repurposed. The vegetables were already boiled or cooked somehow, fried, cooked, sauteed, and then it is dipped into this gravy. That is exactly how the Mudha and Ghora vrittis operate. Old stuff, nothing new they have. Old stuff. And that old hurt, when it encounters a new trigger, what happens? That new tadka is put into the old stuff. Tadka means some seasoning. Some new seasoning is put, and it seems like a brand new dish. And under its spell, you dish out all the things you have never had a chance to say and you wanted to say. And then, and you blame the person standing in front of you. You blame the events. And like I said yesterday, you blame the stars also. Shani is in the wrong place. That's why this is happening. All these things. But really, this is just recycled pains, hurts and sorrows. And the Ghora vritti and the Mudha vritti, Rajasic and Tamasic vrittis, they work in tandem to rehash, to keep this wound alive all the time, and to rehash the material from the unconscious and to gift wrap it. Ghora vritti says to Mudha vritti, I am putting a bow, put your finger there so I can tightly tie the bow. And then Mudha vritti ties the bow. And then what? And then that same hurt is opened as a gift. What a gift, really. What a pain. What a sorrow. It's just old stuff. It is rekindled, and this is what the person doesn't understand. This is why the 15th chapter is such a blessing for us, because it takes it all back to the avarna of the unconscious, to this avarna that keeps me from reclaiming my identity as a sattvic, Shraddha-filled, bhakti-filled devotee who is a student of Vedanta, very close to understanding that I am Ishvara. Very close to that Ananda which I seek. And so the triggers are all from the past. There is some similarity. All you need is something similar for those pains and hurts from childhood to come out and play. Why do they want to come out and play? Because they are not reckoned with. They are not looked into. they are not healed. This is why they just come out, because they want to be healed. This is a desperate cry for help when the Mudha and Ghora vrittis attack. It's a cry for help. The person is not a bad person or an angry person or a jealous person. They are helplessly in the grip of all these vrittis, Ghora and Mudha vrittis and all their qualities. So that's why it behooves one to look into the unconscious mind. So what should I do to remove the unconscious mind? Somebody asked. It is not a product to be removed. It is Ishvara Srishti. It was your survival mechanism, coping mechanism when you were small. You know, the psychologists talk about these 4 types of responses. Fright, habitual responses, fright, flight, freeze, or fight, the 4 F's. So when in difficulty, there is some kind of a default mode of operation that the child learned in a dysfunctional family. You are afraid, or the child is ready to fight for its rights and say, this is wrong, I have to do this. In certain families, that's the modus operandi, depending on the child's place in the pecking order of siblings, etc. Or one is so frightened and traumatized that one just freezes. Or one goes to a proverbial happy place. This is not happening to me. I am not listening. In other words, denial, which is called flight. These are all from the unconscious. So the unconscious, the fright, flight, freeze, fight response, these responses were the child's coping mechanisms. They helped the child grow up healthy, happy, so to speak, so that it could just grow up without just being completely traumatized. Now you don't need them. Now you don't need to run away from someone who reminds you of somebody traumatic from your past. You don't need to be afraid, you don't need to freeze, you don't need to fly, you don't need to be in denial. The coping mechanisms are not the problem. When the coping mechanisms are converted in adulthood into moping mechanisms, then they become a problem. Because this is the way you are caught. One is caught in the past. Totally just caught in the past. And that is why Brahman is not available. That's why one wails, where are you? Don't play hide and seek with me. Show me yourself. And Bhagavan, to tell you the truth, is sick of such sad songs. Bhagavan says, I'm right here. Your ears are filled with Ghora and Mudha wax. You cannot hear me. You cannot see me. I am you. Whenever you have some space available in the heart, I am there. Otherwise, it's just like that TV show, Hoarders Anonymous. All the products of the unconscious mind in the form of difficult vrittis and all their qualities are so much there that the Lord is hidden, as it were. There is no darshan. What darshan you want? That darshan is you in the form of the clear waters. That is why every mumukshu's prayer must be, let there be more accommodation, more compassion, more availability of my mind for me. In other words, let there be, O Lord, more of you and less of me, in me, as me. This should be every jignasu's prayer. Every seeker's prayer is this alone. More of you, Ishvara, more of Ishvara means more kindness, more patience, more ability to forgive whatever happened to oneself and whatever other people might be doing to me. More ability to drop things that are no longer required as crutches or coping mechanisms. The Kathopanishad has a beautiful expression for the Jnani. What is the sign of a person blessed with self-knowledge? In the Kathopanishad, Lord Yama says, Na kaschit gopayitum ichhati. Gopayitum means to protect. The Jnani is the one who has nothing to protect. Not even the body or the mind or the senses. Nothing to protect. This doesn't mean that you need a whole society to keep you up. There are some religious leaders who read this, who perhaps have read this. Religious personas who perhaps have read this part. And then there was one Baba I saw in Rishikesh. Pahunch Gaya Baba, some very highly evolved, reached persona on the bridge, Lakshman bridge. And then there he is standing in a loin cloth, standing or sitting. He was sitting for some time, then he stood up. And then he had some people who took care of him, devotees. Took care means what? I mean, this person was hale and hearty and healthy. He was not elderly. He had not had a stroke. He seemed to be completely able to move, sit, stand, everything. Yet they projected him as someone, or he projected himself as someone who was so away from the world, so disidentified with his own body, that nothing mattered at all. So, come lunchtime, the person on the left is feeding roti sabji, and another lady on the right is feeding chawal rice. Because and the third person, another bhakta, he is wiping the chest and the mouth because he doesn't have any volition. He is in a trance all the time. Doesn't have any volition on his own. But then, when the lady with the roti and vegetables would approach, he would happily turn the head and take the bite in the mouth and chew it. And again, when the lady on the left side who was giving water and some rice or dahi, what is that called? This lassi, this watered yogurt, buttermilk. And he would happily drink from this side, eat from this side. And then when the man is wiping all the clothes and the chest, he would point out to a stain that was left behind by his sloppy eating. This kind of posturing we don't need. We don't need to be, some whatever, some kind of a pretender, a masquerader. Don't need to do that. You don't need to masquerade as someone who is already reached. There is nowhere to go, nothing to reach. Authenticity is sattva. And so here, the nakaschit gopayitum ichhati, the line from the Kathopanishad, is extremely important to internalize. Slowly grow into that. Doesn't matter if you are not in a trance. That's not what Atmajnanam is. Nowhere in the Shastra it is said that the person of Atmajnanam is in a trance all the time. That's not the criterion. The criterion is to see how much of your heart is unfettered by ghora and mudha vrittis. How much of your heart is unfettered. And the more the heart, the mind are available, the greater is your ability to be free, to be happy. And the less is there, the pressure to hold on to things. That is what is meant by nakaschit gopaitum ichchati. The person is not keen on holding on to things. The person naturally lets go. Naturally lets go. Nothing to hold on to. Absolutely nothing. Whether we are talking of things that make one feel good, or whether we are talking of beliefs, grudges, etc. All those can be dropped. In fact, you just make a little bit of effort, Bhagavan will make sure to take away the rest of it. This is how it happens. You make a little bit of effort, the rest happens naturally. Vedanta Shastra, exposure to Vedanta Shastra, committed exposure, and being in Vedanta. That is what is meant by the word Vedant in. So you are in Vedanta. When you are in Vedanta, what happens is that Vedanta takes over. Vedanta means sattvic. Sattvic pursuit. It takes over. And the rest of the pursuits drop. They may take some time. Ghora and Mudha vrittis also drop. They may take some time. And people always tell me this. Before I met you, I was happy. What do you mean? Before you met me, you were happy? Because I had some small happinesses. I enjoyed going to the movies. I enjoyed playing some video games. I enjoyed this, that. I also enjoyed a good dose of gossip, talking about a few other people. There was some maza in that as well. There was some happiness that I could reap. Now all that desire for that is going. If somebody invites me for a potluck, I say, oh, why same old things? The person who brings chole is keeping on bringing chole. The person, same talks, same things, same people. Why should I go? Now I feel like that. And movies also, same stories, same. Why should I go? And then I said, that's a good thing, is it not? No, well, Vedanta is also not coming. And then this is also not going. I am betwixt and between. ठीक है, you are growing. You are growing. Then this person was clever enough to watch these things dropping and was afraid that Vedanta also will not come. This is what in Sanskrit is called Ubhaya Bhrashta. Neither here nor there. Don't worry, that will not happen. It will take time. But Vedanta is you. Moksha is already you. And the bridge to moksha, which is self-knowledge, is you. And the qualifications for self-knowledge described in this chapter as sattvic vritti is also your natural state. So things drop. All the difficulties drop. And all the anxieties also drop. The moment you set forth your job to clean the waters of the mind, to allow the ghora and mudha vrittis to just go to sleep for the time being. How to do that, we will see more. And then further, next verse. Ghora mudhasu malinyat sukham shaschati rohitah. Ghora mudhasu malinyat sukham shaschati rohitah. Ishannairmalyatastatra chidam shapratibimbanam. Ishannairmalyatastatra chidam pratibimbanam. So, ghora mudhasu, in the qualities associated with ghora and mudha vrittis. It's not just ghora and mudha, but the qualities. That's why the plural is there. Ghora mudhasu. not ghora mudhayoho. So like this, so uh, it is not the dual, it is the plural, because it's all the gamut of qualities associated with the ghora and mudha vrittis. Malinyat, due to the impurities, due to the turbidities that were aforementioned. Sukhamshaha cha, moreover, cha here is not and, moreover, sukhamshascha tirohitaha. Tirohitaha means disappeared, rejected, obscured, obfuscated. Sukhamshaha means the happy part. Happy part of what? Brahman, of course. Oh, Brahman has a happy part and a sad part? No, no, no. The quote-unquote part of the partless Brahman. From the standpoint of Satchidananda, the Ananda is eclipsed because of the turbidities associated with the ghora and mudha qualities, with the rajasic and tamasic overlays. The happiness is obscured. As we saw earlier today or yesterday, I forgot in which class, that the vehicle for happiness is sattvika vritti, the carrier of happiness. The carrier of grudges, restlessness, jealousy, etc. are mudha and tamasic, mudha or tamasic, ghora or rajasic vrittis. So, in a mind, this is how the verse must be read, understood. In a mind that is preponderated by ghora and mudha vrittis, in a mind that is cantankerous, contentious, conflict-ridden, dejected, despondent, and subjective, takes everything personally, in such a mind, due to the presence of these turbidities, these impurities, Brahman as Ananda is eclipsed. So ghora and mudha vrittis are like Rahu and Ketu that catch the sun during the eclipse. So it's not that the happiness is absent. The happiness does not have the joy that is Brahman, which one craves, does not have an adequate means of broadcasting. The receptivity is missing because the antenna called sattva has not been extended. Like how for the cars there is this antenna to catch the radio stations, etc. It can be extended and it can be retracted. Same thing with old transistor radios. They used to have this antenna. So if the antenna is all just collapsed, then it won't receive the ananda, sukha. It's not that the sukha is not there. The problem is in the medium, which is not receptive. Why is the medium not receptive? Because the antenna, the ghora and the mudha vrittis are sitting on the sattva vritti and not letting it extend the antenna. Sattva vritti is secondary, ghora and mudha predominate, and so the happiness is unable to broadcast itself. It's unable to be evident. And I'm sure you've seen this in people who are upset, chronically upset, chronically not in a good place. We are not talking of depression which is due to some chemical imbalances. We are talking of the imbalances with a mismanagement of rajasic and tamasic vrittis. The mismanagement of the vrittis, when the vrittis are let loose like a bunch of angry, tired, hungry toddlers you can imagine what kind of cacophony ensues. So too here, the Rajasic and Tamasic inner children preponderate the mind, and the truth of oneself, which is there in the form of Brahman as Ananda, is unable to be received, or as this one says, is obscured. Tirohitaha is even rejected. Rejected. With a sleepy child, a toddler, or a hungry child, and the child is so hungry that it is angry, hangry. This is a new emotion, okay? Hungry, objective, angry, subjective, the combo thereof, hangry. So the mother trying to soothe the hangry child says, you eat this, you'll feel better. No, I don't want to. Go away. Throws the food at the mother because of hanger, not hunger, hanger. And so therefore, this means what? That there is an element of self-sabotage that we have to look at in the Rajasic and Tamasic states of the mind. The Rajasic and Tamasic states of the mind, when they eclipse out the Sattva, when they eclipse out, when they preponderate, what happens? There is a strong element of self-sabotage. Even due to punya, somebody comes and offers the correct way of being, offers a upaya, a remedy for the difficult situation that one is in. One rejects the remedy and instead prefers to saw the limb upon which one is sitting. Slowly, thud, one falls to the ground. Already upset, one is more upset, and one is convinced, nobody can help me. Here I am holding out my hand. Catch hold of my hand, I lift you up. Even if Bhagavan were to say that, the person under the grip of Mudha and Ghora Vrittis will say to Bhagavan, I won't catch hold of your hand. Why not? I don't know if you have used sanitizer or not. This is Corona time. So this is all forms of self-sabotage. Self-sabotage. A drowning person cannot be choosy. There is a idiom. But really, the drowning person is, if they are drowning in the waters of Ghora and Mudha Vritti, in other words, the waters of self-pity, they can be extremely choosy. They choose not to take the help, which actually is the one that they need to take. They choose instead to wallow in the waters, in the shallow waters of self-pity. Help, I am drowning. Help, save me. Oh, you, not good enough because I don't like you. Next person, next. Who will come next and help me? Oh, you. No. I don't like you either. You have this problem. The other one has that problem. This way, there is. One does oneself, continues to do oneself, disservice after disservice after disservice. And therefore what? Even Brahman appears split. There seems to be two Brahmans, one that is shining very nicely and one that is not shining properly at all. The two Brahmans, is not correct. The two is within. There is a split personality, not two Brahmans, just like there are no two moons. The personality is split, because of which the one and only appears as two. And what are these two? One is me, the sad, dejected, rejected, unloved, uncared for, neglected, fearful, tearful me. And what is the other one? The rest of the universe, including Brahman, whatever it is, or the source of the universe, Ishvara. This is the alienation. Oh, Lord, why did you reject me? I haven't rejected you. Bhagavan will definitely say that. You are me. How can I reject you? And therefore, 9/10 of Vedanta is preparation. 9/10 of Vedanta is bringing the mind to a place of sattva so that this knowledge can be assimilated like baby food. That is why the parampara helps. The parampara chops, dices, grinds, and puts in the blender the Mahavakya so that it easily goes in. Like the birds. The birds, when they feed their babies, they will take hold of one worm and with their beak they mash it, they swallow it, they regurgitate it and put it in the mouths of the eager chicks. If you have seen it, so cute. The mummy or the daddy feeding the baby birds. Likewise, the Guru Parampara, with the help of the compassionate gurus, whose only work in life was to really think of how to make this knowledge reach the people, how to make this knowledge more assimilable, how to make this knowledge go inside very easily, were busy sifting the Mahavakyas in big sieves, winnowing the grain to let go of what that is not needed. Let's just bring together the kernels, grinding it up so that it's easy to assimilate for the students, generations of students who are yet to come, for the disciples. Grinding it up and then sweetening it with the honey of some jokes, some stories, some anecdotes to make it go easily inside. It is already sweet, but the person who is wanting is a sugar junkie. So sweeten the knowledge a little more. Not the knowledge, the presentation of the knowledge. Sweeten it up a little more. Make it more flavorful with some stories, with some anecdotes, narratives, real-time examples, so that the knowledge is always contemporary. This is what the gift of the Guru Parampara. And all that the student has to do was open the mouth like the baby birdie. Open the mouth. It will go in. It is instantaneous. It doesn't require anything on your part. Knowledge is effortless. Why? It is based on the pramana that has been diced, analyzed, ground up, sweetened, and made assimilable. The Guru who handles the pramana does this. And then what? It is just poured in effortlessly. It's just like seeing anything. If I had a flower in the hand, I said, this is a flower. You cannot but see the flower. If I put the flower in front of my face and said to you, please see the flower, but please don't look at my face, would you be able to oblige, no matter how much Shraddha you have? Not at all. If there is something to see, and the eyes are open and capable of seeing, sight will take place. Similarly, Vedanta is a means of knowledge, and the knowing that you are Brahman will definitely take place, provided there are no obstacles or inhibitory factors in between. So the teacher brings this delicious pre-cooked knowledge, easy to assimilate. You can enjoy the aroma even as the doling out of this is taking place. The aroma comes because there is a slight little nairmalya, little bit of desire is there, everything is there, so one can enjoy from far the aroma of this knowledge. But when one's turn comes to receive the knowledge, if one doesn't open the mouth, what can the Guru do? What can the Guru, even the best of Gurus, even if Lord Brahmaji were to come and teach, same thing. Open your mouth. No, I'm afraid. Why are you afraid? Because I'm worried that I will be indoctrinated with something. No, 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 it is just you. Open your mouth and you will experience a new you very differently. The same you, but you'll experience it afresh, newly. No, I will not open my mouth. What can the teacher do? Teacher will say, Ayushman Bhava, live long and happy, that's all. This opening the mouth, as the baby bird opens the mouth, requires Shraddha. Shraddha is the jaw muscles that open the mouth. They should be well oiled and kept in good working order. The little leap of faith, the little trust, pending understanding that knowing this is good for me, being in sattva is good for me. Because upon that depends my happiness. My happiness is contingent upon me being freed of the old inimical emotions, grudges, fears, resentment that are carried around by mudha and ghora vrittis. That's why 9/10 of Vedanta is learning how to open the mouth at the right place, at the right time. That receptivity. And when that receptivity is there, then everything becomes extremely easy. So therefore, here in the 9th verse, the author says, Ghora mudhasu malinyat, because of the turbidity associated with difficult vrittis like rajasic and tamasic vrittis when they preponderate, there is no happiness. The happiness which is one's own happiness, subject-based happiness, is not appreciated. Tirohitaha. Even if it stands in the doorway, it is not invited in. It is not invited in. Instead, what is invited in is a host of complaints. You know, in the Indian culture, when we do Lakshmi Puja, we have this very nice Lakshmi Puja, and then you invite Goddess Lakshmi to come in. You light a lamp, keep the door open in the evening, it is done. You invite the goddess to come in, and then you say to the goddess, please, O Goddess Lakshmi, you are invited into my house, into my heart. Lakshmi means resplendence. The word Lakshmi itself means self-effulgence, abundance, Audarya, bigness. Lakshmi is all sattva. I invite you into my home, into my heart. But I have a small request of you. What is it? Keep your elder sister, Alakshmi, away. Keep her at the door. There is no invitation for her. This is the invitation for you, and you alone. No one else can come in. Jyeshtha she is called, the elder one. And in the stories, in the Puranas and all, she is described as wearing a tattered white sari, more like a rag. She is angry, she feels abandoned, and therefore, and she is jealous of Lakshmi, the younger one. And she wants to have that same popularity as Lakshmi. She wants to go into the house as well. But the prayer of the bhakta says, you are not allowed. And she stands at the doorway, seething in resentment. Then what does she do? She perhaps knocks on the house next door. And who are the people living next door? People filled with ghora and mudha vrittis. And she goes in there and stays and stokes their fears. This is like the story that is told. Lakshmi is clarity. Lakshmi is abundance. Don't think of Lakshmi as money. That's just a very surface level appreciation of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is goddess. She is Shakti. What Shakti? Shakti means the power to forgive, the power to overlook other people's omissions and commissions, the power to override my own ghora and mudha vrittis, the power to make the decision to be in sattva all the time, more giving, more letting go, more accommodation. In other words, more saintliness, more patience, more titiksha. This is Lakshmi. And so, why is Alakshmi the elder sister? Very interesting. Because Lakshmi came out of the Samudra Manthanam, the Puranas say, the churning of the ocean. What is this ocean? The ocean is the unconscious mind that is churned with the suras and asuras on either side. The good vrittis and the bad vrittis are churning this ocean of the unconscious. And before the nectar of immortality, Atma Vidya comes, all these other things come. So the churning happens because of the battle within, between dharmic and adharmic tendencies. Very interesting this story is. It is rife with metaphor. In the original stories, they heard that at the bottom of this ocean there is this knowledge that makes one immortal. Of course, the Devas wanted it, and the Asuras, the demonic beings, also wanted it. They wanted it for world domination, etc., not to enjoy the moksha. And then they caught hold of a mountain, which was the churning rod, because it was very deep ocean. And then they caught hold of a snake, Vasuki, snake, a big snake, that became the churning rope. Poor snake. And the Asuras, who were always ahead, went to the head of the snake. And the Devas caught hold of the tail of the snake, and the churning continued. All kinds of things came out, not least of all, hala, the poison of the unconscious. What? In the form of ghora and mudha vrittis, the collective resentment, the fears and everything which Lord Shiva on the day which is celebrated as Pradosha swallowed on the 13th day of the moon. He swallowed this so that there is space for the sattva to emerge. He did a favor. He kept the ghora and mudha vrittis in check, or rather gave the individuals the power to do so by themselves. And the hala visha, which was so, so toxic, even made the toxic Vasuki faint. Even the poor snake fainted. It was so toxic. Before it threatened to engulf the universe, Lord Shiva, out of his compassion, neutralized it. That is why Shakti held the poison in the throat. That is why he is called Neelakantha, blue-throated one. Shakti is himself. So he was able to neutralize the effects of the unconscious mind, so that the jivas have a say and are empowered to just be in sattva. So as the things came out of this collective, the churning of the collective unconscious, first Alakshmi came. That's why she is the elder sister. First, all the resentment, the scarcity. Alakshmi is the opposite of Lakshmi. If Lakshmi is resplendence and abundance, Alakshmi is despondency, despair and scarcity mentality. Scarcity took over. She came first. And she was dispensed with prayer, etc. Afterwards, Lakshmi came. That is why we say, Alakshmir me nashyatam, Shri Sukta. And Alakshmir me nashyatam. And where is this Alakshmi? There is no elder sister or anything. This is part of your own unconscious mind. That which is eager to come out and take over all the difficult emotions, the negativity, all this, the despondency, despair, fear, sorrow. That is what is wanting to take over. That's why the prayer, oh Lakshmi, keep your sister at bay. So why do I make it Lakshmi's problem so that I surrender? I don't own up a Lakshmi as myself. Let her be Lakshmi's sister. Let Lakshmi take care of her. Alakshmir me, Alakshmi hi me nashyatam. Tvam vrine, I choose you. Tvam vrine, I choose you. I don't choose the other one. Look at the culture. Look at this beautiful tradition where the knowledge of the self coalesces with the everyday practices. So beautiful. The pujas, the daily, whatever one does. Alakshmir me nashyatam, tvam rine. And even in another place, in the Sri Sukta, there is Jeshtha Alakshmi, keep her at bay, keep the elder one, the small thinking, me in the form of the small thinking, mean-minded, tavasik, rajasik, idiotic thoughts, insecurities, keep them at bay, O Goddess. Give me a chance to know you, to choose you, to be you. This should be our prayer. And that is the only way that the happiness can be experienced, says the Panchadashikara. Otherwise, if Alakshmi preponderates, the happiness goes away. Tamah prakashavat, like light and darkness cannot coexist in the same place. Happiness and misery also cannot coexist in the same place. Happiness and scarcity cannot coexist in the same place. It's one or the other. The choice is extremely clear. So, here it says that in these vrittis, in a mind predominated, let us say now, by Alakshmi, the happiness is scarce. This is the first line in verse number 9. Then the next one, Ishat Nairmalyataha. Nairmalyataha means there is a little bit of clarity. What is this little bit of clarity? Even in the most Ghora and Mudha colonized mind, Sattvamsha, the sattva is there little bit. It is just in the background. So, that little clarity, this is in the human mind of course, that little clarity is the reason why there is Chidamshasya Pratibimbanam, why there is a reflection of Brahman as consciousness, as knowledge. So the Sat aspect is common to all sentient and insentient beings. The Chit aspect is common to sentient beings. Brahman as Chit is there. Why? Because the sentient beings we saw yesterday or earlier today, we had that, the presence of Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body. And that subtle body presence makes, there is a little bit of sattva, because of which one is aware. I am in a bad mood. I am in a state. Which state? Ghora state, Mudha state. Help. That much awareness is there. Therefore it is Chidamsha Pratibimbanam is there. But the Sukhamshaha is missing, lacking in the background. Chit is there, Sat is there, Ananda, bye-bye. This is what is there in a mind full of Ghora and Mudha vritti. And even if you take such a person aside and teach them Vedanta, nothing happens. Forget Vedanta, you tell them a joke, they don't laugh, I tell you. They don't even crack a smile. You tell them a joke in the class, they don't even crack a smile. Whatever you say, they are like this. Why? Because because of the pain of the Mudha Vritti, the pain of the Ghora Vritti. And they are aware of the pain, which means the Chit of Brahman is very much there, but the Ananda of Brahman is eclipsed. This is the 9th verse. Okay. Then the 10th and the 11th verses, give a drishtanta, two drishtantas of fire. This is to make one understand better what is going on in verses 8 and 9. How come the Sukhamsha is tirohita, is obscured? How come the Ananda is not available? How come the other two are available if Brahman is impartite? This could be a Purva Pakshi's question. If Brahman is impartite and if Brahman is Satchidananda, you say the Sat and Chit are broadcast, but the Ananda is under covers. How can this be the case? Don't you think that then Brahman will become as though divided? No. So he gives two examples to better assimilate this particular partial expression of the partless Brahman in a mind that is colonized by the Ghora and Mudha Vrittis. He gives two examples. What are they? We move from the moon in the water. Now forget about the moon in the water. We are changing the metaphor. So we move from the moon in the water to another example. We talk about the fire and water. The first example in verse number 10 is the fire and water example. And the second example in verse number 11 is the fire and wood example. So what do these drishtantas show? And how can it help us to assimilate the partial expression of Brahman, which is never partial? We will discuss, we will tackle this in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.